My legs refused to move as the thing ascended the stairs, its form a shimmering, indistinct mass that seemed to absorb the light around it. Each step it took warped the air, creating a ripple effect that distorted my vision. The very atmosphere grew thick and oppressive, making it hard to breathe. "Amy," I choked out, my daughter's name a talisman against the encroaching madness. "What have you done with Amy?" The creature paused, its amorphous shape twisting in what could have been a gesture of curiosity. Then, with a suddenness that made my heart lurch, it was at the top of the stairs, mere inches away from me. Up close, I could see that what I had taken for a solid form was nothing of the sort. Its outline rippled and shifted, never settling into a definite shape. Sometimes it seemed vaguely humanoid, other times it stretched and contorted into impossible geometries. A sound filled my head, though the thing before me hadn't moved. The sound was wrong, layered and distorted. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it did nothing to block it out. "No," I growled, anger cutting through my fear. "I won't let you take her." I lunged forward, intending to grapple with the creature, to force it to return my daughter. But as my hands made contact, they passed through nothing but cold, empty air. The shape before me rippled like smoke, reforming just out of reach. You cannot fight what you cannot comprehend. Each word was a hammer blow to my psyche. I felt my grip on sanity slipping, the foundations of everything I thought I knew, crumbling away. But then, cutting through the maelstrom of madness, I heard a sound. A faint whimper coming from below. The basement. Of course, I turned and ran, not away from the creature, but towards the stairs leading down. I could feel its presence behind me, a cold weight pressing against my back. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. The basement door flew open under my hand, and I stumbled down the stairs. The single bare bulb flickered erratically, casting dancing shadows on the concrete walls. "Amy," I called out, my voice cracking. "Amy, are you down here?" A muffled sound from the far corner. I rushed over, my heart pounding in my chest. There, huddled behind an old bookshelf, was Amy. Her eyes were wide with terror, her face pale in the dim light. Amy was scared beyond all words. A blank look washed over her face. I gathered her into my arms, feeling her shaking against me. "It's okay, sweetheart. I've got you. We're getting out of here." As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of something in the shadows, a flickering shape watching us with patient malevolence. I clutched Amy tighter and ran. The drive out of town was a blur. I kept expecting to see that shimmering form in the rearview mirror, but the road behind us remained blessedly empty. Amy huddled in the passenger seat, her eyes vacant, responding to my questions with little more than mumbles. We reached the cabin just as night was falling. It was an old hunting lodge owned by a friend, isolated and off the grid, perfect for laying low until we could figure out what to do next. "Stay in the car," I told Amy as I got out. "I'm going to check the place out, make sure it's safe." She nodded listlessly, her gaze fixed on some point in the middle distance. The cabin was musty but secure. I did a quick sweep, checking closets and under beds, half expecting to find that ambiguous shape lurking in every shadow. But there was nothing. I returned to the car, relief washing over me. "Okay, sweetie, let's get you inside." Amy didn't respond. She sat motionless, her back to me. "Amy," I said, a note of concern creeping into my voice. "Come on, let's go." Slowly, so slowly, she began to turn. And as she did, a low, inhuman sound began to emanate from her. It started as a quiet hum, but quickly grew into a maelstrom of impossible noises. Whispers, screams, and sounds no human throat could produce. "No," I breathed, stumbling back. "No, please, no." Amy's face came into view, and I felt my world shatter. Where my daughter's features should have been, there was only a shimmering, ever-shifting mass. The same formless, unknowable entity that had haunted our home now wore my child's body like a ill-fitting suit. Her eyes strangely hung low, her skin looked ancient, her hair a raspy white, as if she aged 1,000 years in a split second. The last thing I could remember is Amy's now ancient clawed hands raised itself to my face. I knew I was in for the fight of my life. The next day, Millbrook was abuzz with activity. News vans lined the main street, reporters jockeying for position outside the sheriff's office. The disappearances, the strange sightings, it had all culminated in tragedy, and the vultures were circling. Sheriff Bill Henderson stood at the podium, his face grave. Flashbulbs popped as he began to speak. At approximately 9:30 last night, John Taylor abducted his 16-year-old daughter Amy from their home. There was signs of a struggle, and neighbors reported Mr. Taylor dragging a distraught Amy Taylor to the car. In full disclosure, Taylor had come to me earlier that day, clearly disturbed and rambling about strange sightings in town. He paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. I tried to calm him down, but he left in a hurry. Through GPS, we were able to track Mr. Taylor's car to their cabin in the woods, where we found the remains of his daughter, Amy Taylor. A gasp went up from the assembled crowd. Reporters shouted questions, but the sheriff raised a hand for silence. We are currently searching for Mr. Taylor. He is considered dangerous and possibly delusional. If anyone has any information on his whereabouts, please contact the Millbrook Police Department immediately. As the press conference devolved into a frenzy of questions, a lone figure stood at the back of the crowd. It was nondescript, easy to overlook, but if one were to look closely, they might notice how its edges seemed to blur, how its shape never quite seemed to settle. And as the sheriff fielded questions about the tragedy that had befallen Millbrook, the figure smiled. It wasn't a human smile, not really, but it was a smile nonetheless. The hunger had been sated, for now.